All right, we're sitting at 510 ELO, and our opponent is a 504 from the United States. They've played E4, and so C6 is the Caro Kann, and we're going to be playing D5 no matter what move they play. Could be any move on the chessboard, we're playing D5. Now, in this position, they can take the pawn, and we will recapture with our pawn. We'll have two pawns in the center in this situation, and they only have one. So already, I'm feeling pretty good. This is called the exchange Caro Kann, where they take the pawn. Now, he is attacking the pawn 2 times, so I'm going to defend it 2 times, and everything is feeling pretty good here. We have a nice move here, bishop to G4. And the reason this is a nice move is because we are developing with tempo, meaning our opponent has to move their queen a second time. And that's good for us because we've moved the bishop and they have to move their queen a second time, and then we can move another piece and continue developing. So we'll have 3 pieces developed where they'll only just have 2, and they were white, so they should have an advantage. They should be the one to get all 4 of their minor pieces developed first. This is why bringing the queen out early is not a good decision. Now, you do have to ask the question, is the queen looking at anything dangerous here? Is it able to come in here and deliver a check or something? I'm not seeing anything. So I think right now I'm just going to develop my knight to C6, and then we're going to be playing the move E6 so that I can develop my bishop. He's attacking my bishop. So there's a rule in chess: to take is a mistake. So if I capture here, it actually allows them to develop a piece, which is kind of frustrating because then they've sort of caught up in development. So ideally, I would like to not take this piece. I would rather defend my bishop, but maybe in this situation, a defensive move here is maybe not so good. If they then take, we recapture with the queen, they capture, we capture, and then it's their move anyway. I don't know. I don't really want to trade. However, in the Caro Kann, this bishop is your bad bishop, and usually you're okay swapping it off for material. If you're able to just trade it for this knight or trade it for this bishop, often it's quite good. So I'm just going to trade it off, keep things simple. We're going to play E6. And the reason this is the bad bishop is because our pawns are on light squares. And so it's a light squared bishop. So it often gets blocked by our own pawns. It can't move past them. Our good bishop is able to cut through the position. So he's recaptured, he's developing. Right now he has 2 pieces developed and his queen. And I'm going to have 2 pieces and hopefully 3 pieces on the next move here with tempo, meaning the queen's going to have to move again. Right now, I think it's a fairly equal game. Opponent hasn't made too many mistakes. Maybe bringing the queen out early wasn't correct. Maybe going knight c6 wasn't the most accurate. Maybe I should have gone e6 first. That way, when his bishop came out, I could have pulled back to f5, kept my bishop alive. But yeah, here he's looking to get very aggressive. I don't like this. I think this is quite a good move. And I think I'm going to have to play my rook to c8 to stop the knight jumping in. We don't want that to happen. However, can we attack the queen? Maybe knight h5 is a good move. If I attack the queen can't stay on these 2 squares because our knight's hitting him. And he can't come forwards because of our knight here. So everything's covered. Bishop here. Maybe he could come in here and we'd trade and we would lose. We wouldn't have to trade. Yeah, I'm going to just play the simple move rook to c8. And if his knight jumps here, we can capture it. And if his knight jumps here, we can capture it with either piece. And he can't take this pawn on e7 because our knight is defending that pawn. Okay, I want to develop my bishop, but there's a knight here stopping me coming to that square, and I'm only defending that square once with my queen. So I would just lose a piece here. So let's give this knight a little kick. We don't like him. We want to get rid of him. He's going to go back, and then we can develop our bishop. If we go back to that move where I was thinking about knight h5 and you know, hitting the queen, and maybe the queen comes in, I generally don't like to play that kind of move because my knight would become a loose piece, meaning there's no pieces defending that knight. And so a move like queen g4, and I'd have to play g6 because this pawn would be weak and the knight would be weak, and I'd have to defend the knight, you know, and then I'm just sort of creating maybe not the happiest position for myself. You know, having a knight on h5, it could maybe easily get kicked with a pawn to g4. So I don't want to have to just allow my opponent to dictate all the moves to me. I want to, you know, play my game. Okay, he's moving forwards. I think here we can just simply castle because he's attacking this pawn. So we'll just put our king on g8, defend g7. This pawn is a loose piece. It's attacked once and defended once. So maybe I could try to get rid of this defender and then take that pawn. I also have this move, jumping in here and going after the c2 pawn, which looks quite nice because that's also a loose piece. It's not defended and it's not attacked. And here he's made a mistake. He's allowed me to take that pawn for free. So does he have any threats? Maybe here he wants to try to checkmate me, but I'm defending that square, so I'm not afraid. So I think I will just grab that pawn on d4. We have full development in the position, and they still haven't developed their bishop, and they're down a pawn. They're about to lose a second pawn if they're not careful. So we should be feeling pretty comfortable here. You know, I think we're clearly in the lead. Also, when you're in the lead and you're up a pawn or two pawns, often you can just trade off pieces, and that's going to be nice to do. There's a few interesting ideas here. We do have this discovered attack on the queen, which he could like simply fall for. Like if I go knight e4, he might not see that my queen's attacking him, but it's not good to play hope chess. It's better to try to play good moves. So I think here this pawn is weak. We can capture it. Maybe we can come back to this square. We're defended by the bishop. So I'm just going to grab this pawn. We're also hitting his rook. So probably the rook will come to b1. Okay. And I'm actually going to come back to this square, am I? If the knight jumps here, attacking my queen and attacking my knight, I can just capture back. If the knight comes here, we can just take it. And he takes us. I mean, I'm fine with any of that. So I will create a loose piece here. It's not defended. It's not attacked. So that's not good. I could have come back to this square where it was defended. And so that allows my opponents to have tactics. But I don't think these tactics are all that amazing for them. Actually, okay, maybe it is working. Is it? Wow. Wait, I missed this. So he actually could take the pawn. So he actually wins a pawn here. Okay, I actually have something interesting here. I'm looking at this move, bishop takes h2. And if the queen takes me, then we can win this knight. And he's not attacking our knight. The problem is, if I go here, queen doesn't have to take, king can take. Or the king can move. So it's not quite working. But I'm also wondering, what about knight takes here? Knight takes here. Then we go here. And whatever happens on the next move, I'm able to use my queen to defend my knight. I think this looks like the way. Capture here. Knight doesn't have to take. Queen can just simply take back. Yeah, so it's not quite working yet, but it is interesting. We also have tactics here. So the queen might be loose when it comes to the d4 square. And I'm sorry if you can hear Chester behind me. You can see him right here. He's going crazy. Jumping around. Once out of his cage, I'm going to have to let him out right after I play this game. I'll probably put him on my bed and let him run around the room. But he's really wanting some attention there. Yeah, so this is a very interesting position. And it all happened because I created a loose piece on d4. And it would have been much safer probably for me to just play my knight back to b4 and not go into those complications. Especially if you're playing blitz chess, you don't want to have to go through all those complications and deal with all that. And it's just remembering what a loose piece is. And okay, and so here I'm going to take the knight And I think this is a mistake because if he takes with queen, we win the queen. If he takes with pawn, we can check here and take here, but the pawn's then defending. So it's actually not a mistake. It's totally fine because that pawn actually defends the queen. So we'll just have to play up one pawn. We have this extra pawn. It's not defended, so we're probably just going to move it here. But we're just going to be looking for his loose pieces and try to play around them. Hopefully that's a good way for you guys to think about the pieces in chess, you know, if a piece is loose or not loose. Okay, we're up a pawn. And also if I take here, this pawn becomes undefended. Right now it's loose. It's defended once and attacked once. So removing his queen will allow me to take it. So this is called removing the defender of the piece that we want to take. Okay, and I'm going to just capture that now. So we have an extra E pawn and an extra B pawn. So any trades here are good for us. And our opponents played this game pretty well. You know, we made a mistake there. We gave back a pawn. But we are starting to play people that maybe are a little more challenging, which is pretty exciting. So he's attacking my rook. I need to defend it or move it. I don't think it's on a bad square if I put it here. I could also pull back the rook to the c4 square and attack his queen, force his queen to move again. And this just sort of improves my position. You know, I have a rook in the middle that is now defended, and his rook can't get developed. His other rook can't really get to a good square that it wants to be on because it's having to deal with my rook here. And now I'm going to put my queen on the same file as the rook, and I'm also going to get a square for my rook to develop to d8 or even c8. We're not sure yet. Okay, and this blunders a piece. Let's look again. How many times is it defended? How many times is it attacked? So it's defended once and it's attacked twice. So we're going to take that for free. And if he recaptures, that will be checkmate in 2. Queen takes and queen takes will be checkmate if he wants to recapture it. But he probably won't. Okay, good game. Let's jump into the review and see how we did. Okay, we played with a 93.2 and our opponent with an 80.5, and we had one inaccuracy, and I bet it was that move, knight back to d4. Let's have a look and see. So everything here was good. Everything was good. And I was wondering, maybe this move was better first. And then, okay, let's say he goes here. We have to move our king. Okay, so it was very important here to do this. I thought if here, like if in this position and he attacks my bishop, then I had f5 to come back to, which is what I was thinking about, which is totally fine for us. But generally getting the knight developed first is important. So if we had gone here and then here, why do we have to play king d7? It's the only way to defend the c7 square or knight a6. But knight a6, the knight's just on a really bad square. And we do need to defend c7 before things, you know, go wrong. Or later in the game, when he did play forwards here, we had the rook move. So the rook move was available to us because our knight had already moved. But if our knight's still on b8, often going to a6 is the move. And king d7 just feels very weird. Okay, so where was our inaccuracy? We took a pawn, and it probably was this move. Yeah, knight d4. Okay, so not the most accurate move. It was actually more accurate to pin the knight to the queen. I didn't look for this move. This is a great move. Yeah, it's a very active move. I didn't actually need to move the knight because it wasn't in danger. So just leave the knight there. I also have the move knight a3, which is a really nice move. If the rook moves back, well, then we can come to a good square where we're defended or even go back here. But if he takes us, then he's got doubled pawns and we're able to grab his knight, which is very interesting. So we had knight a3, we had rook c4, or we had knight b4. This was the third best move. And this is a much better square than coming to the d4 square. And that was because he had this beautiful tactic. Knight takes d5, which I'm surprised he found, but he had a good understanding of the position there, and he played that very well. Let's jump into game 2. All right, here we have game 2 with the Caro, and we're going to go c6, d5, and he's gotten both pawns in the center. This is the most typical way to play the Caro Kann, and he's taken the pawn. So this is officially the exchange variation, where they've played the d4 pawn. And this is probably the most common Caro Kann that you'll see, the exchange variation. He's developed a knight attacking my pawn, and here I can develop a knight defending my pawn. I can also develop this knight, which, you know, I can do all of these moves in any order. Doesn't really matter so much in this Caro Kann. I'm going to try to pin this knight to the queen, and the reason I do this move first is because I feel like it kind of asks white to play bishop to e2 instead of being more aggressive. So often I think I like to play the bishop out before I go knight to c6, because if you go knight to c6, then they immediately think, let's pin, which I don't like when they pin it, but it's not a big deal. Okay, so here white only has one defender of this pawn, and so if they ever have a knight here or a bishop here, we want to take the knight off here when we're attacked. And he's got doubled pawns in the center here and an isolated pawn here. These are isolated as well. So isolated pawn means no other pawn can defend it. So there's no pawn on this rank or this rank that can defend this guy, or this guy. So now we're going to develop to c6. We're going to play the pawn up to e6 so that our bishop can get active. And here, I think we can put the bishop here, just attack this guy. This looks totally fine. And let's get castled. So my opponent's playing some interesting moves. They haven't developed this bishop yet, but it is somewhat active. And let's just be on the lookout for capturing some pawns. Okay, here, I'm not really worried about this. He can take here, I can take back. I don't think that that's an issue. And so what I'm going to do, instead of worrying about this, is just put my rook on the B file. And the reason I have it on the B file is I want to push the B pawn. So we're going to probably go A6, B5, B4, you know, something like that. Okay, here I'm going to recapture. I have 2 pawns in the center and they have 1. So I'm pretty happy with this. They've pinned the knight to the queen. I could get out of the pin by going here, or I could just move my queen here, and then I can move this a little bit later, something like that. It is defended by the rook, so I'm not too worried here. Could also give the bishop a little kick. Don't think I need to. Opponent's playing pretty well. Maybe what we'll do here is just get out of the pin, because being in a pin is never fun. That means your knight can never move. You know, maybe there's a chance that he could jump here at some point and, you know, maybe apply pressure to the pinned piece. Okay, and so he's just captured, so I'll just recapture. And I think now my whole plan is going to just be to attack down this file. Typically what happens in the exchange Caro Kann is they'll develop their pieces, and you have to go for an attack on this side of the board, 2 pawns against their 3. And that often creates a backwards pawn on c2 that, I'm sorry, c3 that you can go after. Okay, a sacrifice here. Does it do anything? I don't think it does. So I don't know why he's done this. He's checking me here. I can just move the king. I don't think that this is justified by my opponent, but we'll see. Now, my opponent also doesn't have a pawn here on the g file, so getting a rook here looks very nice. So probably this is on the cards. We do have a check here, but it doesn't really do anything for us. It would probably be a better check if I was able to get my queen on the light squared diagonal, but I'm not seeing that yet. Maybe we can simply move the queen to d7 and take this guy, and then this would be checkmate. We also can just double the rooks. There's probably a lot of good moves here. If I go queen to d7 and he goes here, we can just simply take. So I think he needs to find a way to defend this pawn. So let's just go here. Queen to d7. And the nice thing about this move is it just covers all these squares. You know, the queen's looking at everything. And so we really just need one lost piece to just deliver the check. You know, even bishop here might be good. King here. And then, you know, maybe there's a way to get the bishop out of the way so that the queen hits with check. There's probably a lot of really good ideas here. The simplest, though, just looks like rook g6. And I'm not worried about any back rank issues because this rook is on the back rank. So he's going to do a good job of defending everything. Maybe he can go king g2. Maybe? Okay, well this move doesn't work. We already talked about this. We can just take whatever piece lands on this square. And if he wants to take my rook, then I'm just going to have a rook and a bishop for the price of one rook. So we just basically won a bishop there in that position. Okay, he's trying to be tricky. He's got 2 attackers. And I only have 1 defender. And if I move the rook, then this queen's in danger. I think I can just simply put the rook here. And that defends my queen. So now he's not even winning my rook. I'm also threatening to take the queen. So he's delayed a lot of my plans, but the way he's delayed it is by giving me a free rook. Is there any check here? Don't see it. Nothing here. He could be looking at h7, so maybe the bishop wants to come here, but really don't see any issues yet. I'd love to deliver a check, but this one doesn't work yet. Maybe just simple to put the rook on e8, double the rooks, and go after the e1 square. That'll force the king forwards. I think my queen's just a little misplaced. It's not able to get onto any of these squares. Okay, the opponent has moved forwards. I think now what we can do is put the rook onto this square. One piece that I'm finding kind of annoying is this bishop. So maybe what we can try to do is just get rid of the bishop. I think this looks pretty interesting. Just hitting the bishop. If it comes off this diagonal, I'm going to be very happy because then I can, move on to it. Maybe have a check. And if it comes off this diagonal, it goes here or something, then we have a check here. So both of those look quite interesting. Okay, so 2 attackers on this rook. I'm just going to ignore it and play queen check. And everything here is covered. So the king has to go backwards or the pawn has to block. And if the pawn blocks, then that means I can move in with the other rook. And then the king has to go backwards. And if he doesn't go to this square, then I can move in with the other rook and go here. I didn't even consider this. Okay, why didn't I consider that? I don't even know. I thought I could just take, but I forgot that the pawn could move backwards. Actually, he's making this kind of difficult for me. So if I capture, then the bishop's going to capture. And I just want a pawn for a bishop. Okay, this is kind of annoying me, so I'll just take it. And I'm already ahead in materials. This is kind of sad that it's taken me this long. But we should be fine. Just able to take here. Looks pretty good. I also had this move, g6, which might have been good. I didn't even think about g6 because with the bishop coming here, g6 attacks the queen. The queen has to try to defend the bishop. It has to go here maybe, but we are still up a whole rook, so we're fine. This speedrun series is definitely not perfect. I'm far from a fantastic player. I make so many mistakes, but hopefully this is helpful for you guys in figuring out sort of the ideas in the Caro Kann. I'll try to explain them better as I do each episode. It's always these weird openings though, where you get sort of just crazy random moves which you just haven't quite seen before. This game was a little weird. So one thing I'm thinking is, if they do come back here, we do have a check, but also we can just put the rook on f8, and that's also not an issue for us. And then we're really looking at the f2 square. So there's probably a lot of decent moves here. Okay, so what's the simplest? This piece is loose, meaning it doesn't have any defenders or attackers. So they're probably thinking about this. I move the rook and then they win the bishop for free. I think I'm just going to try to keep things as simple as possible. And we're just going to trade off the queens, because why not? This game needs to come to an end soon. Okay, so if they move the bishop and attack me here, we can just take it. They're attacking me here, so we can just trade. We don't have to, but the less pieces on the chessboard, the better. Okay, he didn't want to trade, which is very strange. So let's just keep the bishop. We'll just pull it back. Let's just put it here. Looking at this pawn, we can move the rook here. Getting ready to take the pawn. So we'll just take that real quick. He has to go here. It's his only move. And then we can check here with the rook. and win this for free. He had an idea of taking here and attacking here and maybe getting a back rank, but yeah, it's not going to work. So check with the bishop. He can't block with the rook because the rook can't move like a knight. So he has to move here, and now we just take the rook for free. And maybe we'll just try to ladder this way. We'll deliver a checkmate here as soon as we move the rook. So this is checkmate. All right, we'll jump into the review, see how we did, and then go to a game 3. I'm expecting to see a few inaccuracies. I don't think I played particularly well, but we'll see. 87%. Yeah, it wasn't fantastic. We had 4 inaccuracies, but we were never losing the game. So just getting pieces onto good squares, closing off the pawn chain, and then pushing this was a bit weird. Okay, it didn't want our rook on the b file. It just wanted us to defend this pawn. And I don't know why having the queen here is so much better. Okay, and having on the c file is more active, I suppose. But this was a very strange game. And yeah, probably just when he attacked here on f7, probably just moving the rook is the simplest. Oh, wow. Hold on. We have 2 pieces attacking. I could have just taken it. This is just such a weird move to play. I'm not expecting that it's free. I don't even count how many attackers and how many defenders. So I'm sorry. I made that game go on longer than it should have. But yeah, we can simply just capture this. But opponents at lower rating ranges are going to hang pieces just randomly a lot more. And I'm not expecting that. I just don't expect my opponents to just hang pieces. And that's probably my own fault, you know? I need to just always be ready for my opponent to hang a piece. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. And I'll jump into the next one now. Okay, we're playing Ern from Saudi Arabia. And we have the black pieces. And this is a Caro Kann. And we've put our pawn on d5. Are they going to take it? They don't. So this is called the 2 knights attack, and I always put my knight on f6. And if they take here, this is kind of like a Tartakower Caro Kann, where you have this weird pawn formation. Now, this Caro Kann specifically is one where we want to go for checkmate. If we want to checkmate, we don't want to trade pieces. So the engine will recommend queen e7 here, but that just allows a trade of pieces. So we don't want to trade pieces. We're actually going to put our bishop on e7, then we're going to castle, and then we're going to move our bishop to the square that it really needs to be on in this opening, which is d6. So we'll get castled here, and now our bishop's going to move to d6. Maybe right before we move it to d6, we can try to play a tricky move, and that move is rook e8. And the reason this is a tricky move is because we're threatening to win their queen. And maybe they want us to take this bishop back. And unfortunately, I'm not going to show you a typical Tartakower checkmate. But going here with the bishop, checking the king also hits the queen. And so we get the queen here with our rook. And we can take this if we want, or we can just move back here, because now we're able to develop our queen to a good square. And the position's just very interesting. So we have a queen and they have a rook and a knight for it. So an interesting imbalance. I think we want to get our rook to the open file. So let's move our bishop. Let's develop the rook with check. Moving the king forwards is not a good idea. He needs to get castled. Maybe over here was more a quicker way to get castled. And he's actually fumbled this and this. And so you might want to just reactionary take this immediately. It's actually better to take this one because this guy can't move. So we can always take him a little bit later. GG. We will jump into the game review here real quick. We played with a 90% accuracy. And this was very interesting. But there you go. Do like the video if you can, and do check out the other ones in this playlist because they might help you learn the Caro Kann a little bit better. Bye for now.